Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this exciting webinar. We are thrilled to be discussing cloud solutions with EpiGrid, the pioneers for CAD in the cloud. So today we have Philip Lewis, Technical Account Manager and Elite AE too, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Nice. So you're going to be walking us through this presentation. So without further ado, you can go ahead and take it away.
All right, thank you for the introduction. So like Lori said, I work at EpiGrid, so we are a cloud hosting provider, and so that partners with DesignPoint. So I'll just kind of walk through a little bit more about who we are here. And see if I can get my mouse to work there. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a few different things, like who is EpiGrid, so what do we do here at EpiGrid? The value of the cloud, so what we've seen with our existing customers and maybe where the market's going, and different things different types of values that you can get by moving to the cloud. And then we'll go over a little bit of how we actually deliver our cloud products, specifically for SolidWorks. And then I'll show you a few real life examples, and I'll do a quick demonstration of how it can work. And I have a vault, a PDM vault set up on my computer and our virtual machine. So I'll walk you through that real life example. Okay, so EpiGrid, what is EpiGrid? So what we do here at EpiGrid is we're a turnkey IT solution. And we are 4 engineers. We always say we're 4 engineers by engineers. We were started as a group of engineers that developed this solution so that we could work collaboratively across the globe. So we use SolidWorks all the time, we use PDM all the time, and we use it all in our cloud solutions. So we are the only SolidWorks partner right now doing cloud in CAD in the cloud and PDM in the cloud. We're also a global enterprise private cloud solution. So we don't host our data on a public cloud. We have a private cloud network, data center network across the globe that we use to connect all of our customers to their own environments. So that's where we're a little bit different from most situations that you would see like an AWS and a Microsoft Azure. So we are a SolidWorks services and a solution partner. Just if you look down the bottom half of the screen, some of our partners are Converge, which is a SolidWorks reseller as well in other territories, and SolidWorks, of course, and then DesignPoint. So DesignPoint is one of our partners for a little over a year now, I believe. So that's been really great. Some of our clients, we've done a little over 200 implementations as a team, and PDM is sort of our bread and butter, our expertise. So some of our clients are Lyft, the ride sharing service, Fossil Watches, and Artisan Custom Door Works as well. So that just gives you a little bit of background and sort of what we've done and where we're coming from. So as far as security, I won't spend too much time on this, but we do have all of your major certifications and things like that when it comes to data center security. A lot of these, we can give you lots and lots more information on these on all of our security compliances and different things that we have to do to meet these compliances on our side, as far as documentation and steps that we take for security, and things that our data centers all have to meet these compliances so that we will work with them. Okay. So let's talk about the value of moving to the cloud. You've probably all done banking online, things like that. So you've seen we probably all have an idea of what some of the advantages are for moving to the cloud, but how does that relate to engineering? So engineering has a lot of IT burden when it comes to managing servers, especially if you start introducing something like PDM or just your licenses, your license managers and all of that. So with moving to the cloud, you can move some of that IT burden onto someone like us. So when you partner with us, then we can take care of that whole server management, server monitoring, that whole side. So I'll get into our different services and kind of how we build this in a minute as well. So you can also, by moving to the cloud, one of the big ones is being able to access the data from anywhere. So with our solutions, you can travel around the world, and with a VPN client, we use a VPN client to connect to your data when you're offsite. when you're on site, we can use a permanent VPN, so you don't even have to be, you don't have to log into anything else. So you can also lower the cost of PDM ownership. So this is a big one. When a lot of companies that we talk to, when they're looking at moving to PDM, you start to think, okay, I have the PDM license, but then I also have these other server costs. I have to maintain the server. I have to update the server as long as I continue to upgrade SolidWorks. I have to pay someone to know how to do all that, to manage that. And then a lot of our customers that move to us want to talk about backups as well. So that's another big thing that is a cost of just owning your data. You should be backing up all of your data anyway, but when you move to PDM, there's some good backup schemes and ways that we can handle that as well. You can also streamline your implementation process. So this is a big one for us here at EpiGrid and DesignPoint, is you can, by moving to the cloud, we can help you by managing that server for you. We can actually help support you a lot easier by having that access. So a big part of managing or actually doing implementations is going on site or support. We have to actually get access to that vault, and you have to maybe show up on site and do that. And it might not be as cost effective as just logging into your cloud setup with EpiGrid and helping you out right there on the fly with some support. So there's some really big cost savings that can come along with that as well. So how do we build this solution, and what does it exactly look like? I'll kind of go through this. It might be a little bit of a schematic, and there's a little bit in here that is a little bit technical, but I'll just kind of talk you all through how this is set up. So it's this centralized data is a big one. Right now, I don't think we have very many customers that are using replicated archive servers. If you've ever used PDM, there's a way where you can actually replicate that PDM server across the country to get it, or across the world to get that data closer to wherever the user is. But with EpiGrid, when you put that data in the cloud, then you really only need to be in the region, or not even that. So with that centralized data set, everyone can access that centralized data set. So that's really good for remote access. It improves the ability to actually work together, because you're not having to wait for some data to replicate across the internet. And so we'll talk more about that in a minute. So you also have remote access for a distributed design team. What that means is just you can bring in a contractor, create a username for them, and give them access. And it's really quick, and it's really easy to give them access without having to install SolidWorks. We have some solutions that I'll show you as well, where you don't even have to install SolidWorks for them, and they don't have to be on the same version, things like that. So you also have, like I mentioned a minute ago, the simplified, the access to support. So improved access to support. Your support team over at DesignPoint can log right into your vault and say, oh, you have something going on here with your workflow that you might want to change this, or hey, we've added a license or anything like that. It's a lot easier to support you as a customer when you're hosted in the cloud, so that you can allow that access whenever it's needed. And you can also scale. So scalability is really big with virtual infrastructures. By moving to the cloud, we can add resources, we can add space. And another big advantage of that scalability is, like it says there on the slide, you can grow as you grow, but you can also just size your environment for what you need at the time. So you're not paying for all this space or all this backup space and all these server resources that you really don't need at a certain point in the life of a company. And then as you grow as a company, we can grow those resources. And the flexibility, that's basically what I was talking about there, is there's another advantage to that flexibility, and that is to be able to dynamically scale up those resources on the fly. And so let's say you have a big simulation project coming up, or some kind of big rendering project. And what we can do is we can scale up one of our virtual machines to have a lot of resources on it, to be a very fast with a lot of RAM or something, and it'll knock out that rendering for you and free up your own computer at the same time. So we can do that on the fly, and then just scale it back down when you don't need that resource anymore. So what are some of these services? We've talked about some of the advantages to moving to the cloud. But so some of the way we've built this service to best suit engineers' needs is by putting all of these pieces together. One of the big things that we found with public clouds and other solutions where we've tried to build them out is the bottom line there on this slide, and that's a predictable fixed monthly cost. That's a big one because it's really hard to tell how much bandwidth sometimes you're going to need in that month or that day, and you can really there can be a lot of hidden costs. So with our solutions with Design Point here, we have a fixed monthly cost. You know exactly what your bill is going to be for the year, for the month, and you can do monthly, and you don't have that way you can budget for that and forget about the whole IT side of engineering. All of our solutions are in a tier 3 data center with redundancy and security. So that tier 3 is a security level ranking there, and then the redundancy is basically if your service goes down at all, then we can have that fail over to another server. So we can always have that fail over to another area, another data center, or another server in that same data center if needed. So we have that so that you really don't have any downtime. We also have 24/7 managed IT services and monitoring. So on all of our servers, we'll have that monitoring package running, and we can get notifications if anything is happening, and then we can notify you. 100% backups. So that's a big one. We don't sell a gigabyte of space without it being backed up, because we run into it so many times where customers have had sometimes some catastrophic things happen where they don't have backups, and that's the last thing you want to do is lose any data. So when you move to our solution, when you move to our servers, we back it up, and we can get you usually back up and running in about 30 minutes, just the time it takes to send a few emails to us to let us know that you need to recover some data. Our bandwidth is burstable to 1 gigabyte per second. That just means the actual traffic over the network that you would use. You really don't need that. We don't have really anyone that's reaching that though, because PDM is such a low overhead type system. So another really good reason to use a PDM system is that it uses a caching system between each user's workstation, so you're really not transferring that much data. So then the other piece of the puzzle here is that we put together over time is we realized these NVIDIA users would want some type of virtual workstation to work in. So we have these NVIDIA GPU enabled workstations, and that basically means you basically take a Windows 10 workstation and put it in the cloud. And so you can actually get that workstation in the same data center as your data, and now the transfer between the two is lightning fast. So you really have a lot of gain there by just being able to transfer data and work in PDM that way. And that can be a fully functioning SolidWorks workstation. So I have one of those running that we will log into at the end of this. So let's talk about cost. So there are some cost savings there. There's a lot of cost savings that are involved here with moving to the cloud. So we've talked about some of the IT advantages and some just the way you can adapt and grow as a company over time without having to purchase new servers. So this is just a basic, really ballpark here, but what we've seen as far as costs that a company can incur over a 5-year period. So you can see at first you'd need a server to get set up with all of your data. So if you're wanting to share data with people, with your other coworkers, you're wanting to share data with multiple users, if you're using PDM or not, then you have a server. And let's say you spend around $2,500 setting that up, getting that implemented. And that's not even talking if you have a PDM implementation. That would just be getting SolidWorks, all set up on a server. Then you have some annual labor involved where that monitoring, maintenance, anything that's involved with SolidWorks, PDM, anything like that would incur a cost. And then, so around every 4 to 5 years, you would have to upgrade that server as well, or upgrade the operating system, upgrade the resources. just to be able to upgrade your SolidWorks systems anyway. So we came out to a ballpark around $50,000 over 5 years is potentially what you could spend on something like a normal server environment. And just a ballpark around our monthly fees for our solution, you would end up around $26,000 after 5 years. So that's just a drastic savings right there by just moving everything to the cloud and not having to worry about the actual IT, all the time spent around that as well. Okay, so let's talk about one of our customers. So one of our customers is Fossil Watches, and they came to us and they said, we have engineers in Dallas, we have engineers in San Francisco, we have engineers traveling to China. We have a few in China that are actually doing some engineering, but we're also traveling there all the time. We would like to be able to access our data. And so they wanted to be able to travel all around, all of these groups to be able to work together on data. They have I think 13 or 15 brands that all work on some of the same core products, but then do their own design work in the brands all across the country and across the world. So it was very imperative to them to be able to all work on the same data sets and to be able to work together. So they came to us and said, we have a large IT team that's very knowledgeable, but we would like to build this IT infrastructure in your cloud so that we can have that SolidWorks expertise and a lot of the other advantages that we talked about earlier. Now, this is an example of a company that obviously has 50 plus SolidWorks users, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not. This is not a good solution for any size company. We have plenty of companies that are just 1 to 2 users and don't want. So there's a lot of different advantages at a 50 plus user level and also at a 1 to 2 user level where you don't want to have an IT infrastructure burden. You don't want to have to deal with a server or anything like that, or updates, upgrades, all that kind of stuff. So it's really good for any size company. And the centralized database was a big one for Fossil as well. Just having all of that data in one place so that everyone could access the same data in real time was very, very beneficial to them. And then they didn't have any data management processes in place. They had some, but they were not using any kind of engineering data processes. More of a PLM after the fact, after the product's finally made type processes for their data management. So we introduced them and showed them how PDM can help. And now they have a very nice vault that is a very well built out, well thought out vault, PDM vault that is helping them throughout their whole engineering process. Okay, so I just want to show, I'm just going to walk you through a little bit more here and show you guys how we set some of this up. And let me actually go back here. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to press escape. So how we set these vaults up is you can actually, let's say you have a PDM vault running on your local computer at the time. So right now I have a vault right here that I'm logged into. And for non-PDM users, this is how you can log on and off of a PDM vault. And what it is, it's a shared drive basically that gives you access to the same files as everyone else. So if I go in here, let me just drag this over. So this is what PDM looks like in Windows Explorer. And again, right now I'm just on my local computer. So this looks and feels exactly like you would normally see in a normal setup when we're not using the cloud at all. But however, any data that I add here, let me just grab some files here. Any data that I add to this vault, if I just drag and drop a random test file in here, is adding that data to my cloud hosted server. So now anyone else that's connected to this server, and I can just go right here and check the file in. Anyone else that's connected can access this as long as I check it in. So in the same way you would use PDM within your walls of your office, works the exact same way. Users can install that entire local, the local version of PDM on their computers, and they just like has been done for years. And you can also have SolidWorks installed. So I have SolidWorks here, and you can run SolidWorks on your local computer, check files in and out, just like you would normally work. So that is how that would look for that first piece. Now the other side to this is a virtual machine. VMware, we have a whole suite of virtual machines that we can allocate to your company and tie that in and add that to the private network that your PDM vault and your server are running on as well. And all you have to do is you can go to a web browser and go to a URL and click, I'll just do HTML access. There's two ways to access the actual data, or there's two ways to access these workstations. And when we log in here, so I'm just going to find my login, just grab my password. So I'm just going to type in a username and password, and this is sort of like logging into your computer. So just like you would start and log into Windows, that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm just doing it through a web browser. And when I click login, it's going to take me to my my virtual workstation pool here. I can say, I'll just go ahead and launch that by just clicking on it one time. So what this is going to do is just launch a virtual workstation that is running Windows 10. So now you can see how my Windows 10 workstation here, see how I have my double taskbars. If you log into a virtual workstation using the VMware client, it will actually allow you to use full screen, multiple workstation or multiple displays. It'll allow you to do some more functionality like USB pass-through, things like that, where you can use a USB device on the virtual machine. But I'm just using the HTML access so far to demonstrate that. So let's say I wanted to launch SolidWorks. So my second toolbar here is my virtual machine. You can see it's just like I'm used to. It's a Windows 10 workstation. I can launch SolidWorks just like I'm used to. I don't have to learn a new CAD software. I don't have to learn anything else about how to use SolidWorks. It's the exact full installation of SolidWorks that I'm used to seeing. Let's let that start up. Go ahead and close this. I'm just going to let that load for a minute there. Okay. All right, and so if I'm I've launched SolidWorks here. You can see that it's a full installation of SolidWorks just like you would normally see. And then let's go back to my local computer workstation here and check at our file here. We did log into the vault. We checked in our 22 HP engine cover. So it is now checked into the vault. So I'll minimize that. And now let's say I drove home and I logged in from a Mac or something, or a coworker was working on one of these virtual machines and they wanted to pull up that file. Well, I just checked it in on my local computer view. Now I can go here on the virtual workstation and log into the exact same vault here. We have one named PDM Pro Demo. When I click Login, I can go right here to my vault view. We'll let that load, and that is now this workstation that I'm looking at here is in the same data center in the same location as my data, as my PDM server, my actual database and archive server. So this data, if I double click on testing here, I now see my engine cover that was checked in from my local computer. So it's basically a full sync there, just like PDM would normally work, and I'm accessing that data from this virtual machine. So I can actually, when I click on that file, if I wanted to get latest version of that file, it's extremely fast because it's using that data center speed, and the relation to the proximity to the actual archive and database server is so close that that works a lot faster. That syncing up, that downloading of the version. So now let's just drag and let's go ahead and just open it in SolidWorks. Let's see if it's going to do that. It might not. So we'll go ahead and double click and open that. Okay. Then I have one more step that I wanted to show everyone. We have our toolbox that is not in the vault, and we do not want to check the file out. So I want to show you what it would look like. This is an older version of a file, but it opened it twice, it looks like. So this is what, so I'm running this in the virtual workstation. So the only data that is being transferred to my computer over the internet. So the only reason I need internet access here is that visual experience. So the actual data itself is not leaving the data center in this case. And this can be really useful for contractors or temporary employees or temporary people that are doing project work for you, because the data never actually gets to that person's computer. This way they're on the same SolidWorks version as you. You don't have to give them, if you ever do that, you don't have to give them your SolidWorks license numbers, anything like that. You just give them a URL and a login, and they go there, they do the work. Then whenever their project or their contract is over, you just change the password, and all of your data stayed safe and stayed in the same location. So you can see how this looks. This is the visual experience is what's being transferred over the web. So you can see there's really no difference than working on a local computer. And now I have my vault here, and I can actually check that out, check files in and out, just like I would on my local computer. So so that's everything I wanted to talk about here. And thanks for listening. So Lori, if you wanted to take back over, and we can answer some questions.
Sure. Yeah, you can just leave it in the middle, in the opening slide. That's fine. Now, if anyone has any questions, feel free to either type them in the question section or in the chat section. And while we're waiting for those to be populated, I just want to thank you. I'm like, I learned so much. I learned about bandwidth. I got to see it live. I'm literally here glued to my screen. So great job.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to show what it looks like, and yeah, exactly. So let me know if anyone has any questions.
So I do have a few here. Let me just make this a little bit bigger. How would it be if the performance in case when we have a machine assembly with 100 or more parts?
100. Okay, so if you're referring to checking in and checking out, then it's a little bit more reliant on your bandwidth at your office. So it would just be whatever your upload and download speeds are. That's what you would end up being able to transfer that data. But if when it comes to the actual virtual workstation, then 100 plus parts really isn't a problem at all. We have several clients that are using 10,000 component assemblies, and SolidWorks runs fine with those. So I mean, there are definitely some large assembly practices that have to be in place at that point. But anything like 100, around 100 to 500, you really wouldn't see too much of a difference in the virtual workstation. I hope that answers that question.
Perfect. And just in case we don't answer things exactly how you guys would like, please feel free to, just drop another question or another comment. I have on here, I think somebody was a little bit impressed. Was this really happening in a web browser? Can you make sure that you use the same functions in a Mac? I think you touched on that a little bit, but maybe reiterate on that.
Yes, that's right. So the virtual workstations you can log in through a web browser or use it on a Mac, anything like that, because none of that computing power, nothing's happening on your own local workstation. So when you log in, you could even run it on, let's say, a Google Chromebook that doesn't have much power at all and only costs $200. And then you log into that virtual workstation, all that computing and processing, all that memory is happening in the data center at that point. The only thing being transferred over the web would be, over the internet, would be that visual experience, the actual visual data.
Perfect. I have another one on here. What do I need to do to prepare for a transition into the cloud? Great question.
Yeah, that is a good question. So to prepare for the transition, we'll take two examples there. If you have a PDM system, it's as easy as just migrating the data. You could just move the data from server to server, just like you would from doing a server migration in a local environment. We can migrate that data to the cloud server. Then you just change a few lines in the registry on the user's side, and they're connected to the cloud server, so they don't even really notice. If you are moving, it's more of moving into a PDM system that would be the more of the question. So if you don't have a PDM system, then we can talk about different ways to implement PDM and do that. As far as the cloud's concerned, though, you don't really have to do anything special to prepare to move into it.
Awesome. I also have on here, will my company need to hire IT people to handle? I'm guessing so to handle the cloud infrastructure.
Yeah, no, nope, not at all. So that the IT teams can work on other things usually. And so with this, as far as the engineering setup goes, then we basically become that SolidWorks support IT monitoring arm of your company. So you don't have to hire anyone to do to work on IT as far as SolidWorks goes.
Perfect. Okay.
No additional cost there.
I don't see any other questions on here. Does anybody else have anything? I'll give it like another minute or so just in case. Funny, a minute feels like forever when you're in a webinar. I'm like, was that a minute yet? No, there's like 5 seconds. Too fast.
Right.
Nope, I think we are all good here with questions.
And we also, oh, sorry.
No, it's okay, go ahead.
We also usually, we can set up a demo environment for these virtual machines. All of that can be demoed for free, of course. And so if anyone wants to request, just shoot Design Point an email and we can set up a demo usually the same day.
Perfect. I love that quick turnaround time. I was actually going to go ahead and echo just that. If anybody has any other questions or you think about something later on and you want some answers, please feel free to reach out to Design Point directly. Philip will keep you in the loop because you've done a fantastic job at explaining everything. I'm like, oh, I could totally use CAD in the Cloud. I get it now. So if that's all, I will go ahead and bring this to a close. I can't thank you enough again, Philip, and everyone else who came out this morning. And I hope to take some of this information here, distill a little bit, and perhaps create other content for some of our customers. But this recorded webinar should also make its way to our page probably by the end of the week or so.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.